Might wanna buckle up, baby.
Punch it, I'm Jacob, and welcome to Lightspeed. And if you're a Star Wars fan that hasn't really read a lot of the books or comics, you totally should start, and here's why. Early last year, I realized that audiobooks were included for free with Spotify Premium memberships. Not sponsored, that's just one way that I listen to my music. But nonetheless, I decided to look into it. And I quickly realized that there were a ton of Star Wars books, both canon and legends, that I could listen to at any given time. Now, I used to be a huge bookworm growing up, but unfortunately, I'd kind of fallen out of the habit of reading, with the last book that I could remember myself reading being Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule when the High Republic began back in 2021. So to say that I was overjoyed that these audiobooks were already included in my pre-existing membership would honestly be an understatement, because what better way to get back into reading with the help of my two favorite things: Star Wars and free stuff. Well, mostly free. I guess I still had to pay the monthly fee for my membership. So around March 2024, I started listening to the audiobook of this book, Brotherhood by Mike Chen, and I could not stop listening to it. I already have a review of this book up on my channel now, but all you really need to know is that this is honestly one of my favorite Star Wars books ever, and if you're a fan of the prequels and the Clone Wars, it's probably going to end up being one of your favorites too. And after finishing Brotherhood, I decided to jump into Legends to pick up some old expanded universe books that I knew that I really loved and that a lot of people have read. So I ended up picking up the Essential Legends versions of the Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn. I had already read those books in middle school when I was a lot younger, and I remember loving them. And revisiting them was just so nostalgic and so much fun. And honestly, they were a lot better than even I remember them being. I've actually read all of the books within the canon by the time of me making this video, which is insane to say because it took so long to collect them. Like, you can see this bookshelf behind me here. There's another one on the opposite side of the room because there's no way that all of the Star Wars books that I own would fit on that one shelf back there. And now I'm in the process of collecting all of the old expanded universe books, which I'm making pretty steady progress on. Honestly, these books are so much fun to get, and occasionally, if you buy them used, you'll find cool stuff in the pages, like somebody was using a Pokemon card from like a long time ago as a bookmark in this book, which I thought was actually pretty cool. It's just like Star Wars Twitter loves to say, billions must read. But perhaps the best thing about diving into the wide world of Star Wars books is the fact that you'll pretty much only find respectful discussion of these stories online, or at least in my personal experience. It's been said by many, but it's very true. Some of the best Star Wars stories are told on paper. Diving into eras like the High Republic, which is almost exclusively books and comics with the exception of The Acolyte, and reading books like Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray about Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, which are obviously characters that I already knew. It was really investing for me as a fan of this franchise. All of these books, regardless of the era, regardless of canon or legends, it adds so much to the grander mythos and themes within the saga, and I wouldn't have known that had I not experienced and read these stories for myself. In some cases, it's also how certain characters' journeys are continued outside of the shows and movies. As much as I enjoyed The Acolyte, it's probably not getting a second season, sadly, but the cool thing is that we already have 2 books coming out this year, one of which has already been released, about characters from that show, so the show and its characters can live on through publication. So by reading these stories and experiencing them for yourself, you're only going to find yourself loving this series even more and reading continuations of things that you never thought would be continued within the mainline saga. Or hey, you might read a story that changes your perspective on one of your least favorite Star Wars projects. Not saying that you have to read a book to understand a show or a movie, but by doing so and reading a novelization, it could certainly and potentially change your mind on a project that you're not particularly fond of. Anybody that knows me knows that I love the sequel trilogy, but whether you love or loathe those movies, I'd still highly recommend reading the expanded novelizations for both The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. Both are exceptionally written books and actually add a lot more to those stories than you might expect. Also, for what it's worth, the worst possible people online that are very loud about things that they don't like about new Star Wars, they don't really direct their attention here, and the few times that they do, it's very surface level things or criticisms that don't really matter, so it's got to be surface level because they haven't read the book, right? If I say something online like The Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie, I'm going to get hit with a ton of angry comments that you probably can just see in your head right now. But if I say something like, I think Elzar Mann and Avar Kriss are two of the greatest characters in all of Star Wars, not just the High Republic, the worst possible people online are not going to know what or whom I'm talking about. They'll watch a show to complain about a show, but they're not going to sit down and read a book that they're probably going to hate anyway. It's good to know that there's a small piece of the fandom that is incredibly respectful and fun to discuss things with, albeit being a little bit more niche. And for those watching this video that are more interested in exploring the expanded universe side of things, there's a lot of great people that I follow online who love respectfully discussing that timeline as well. So if you want to start getting into Star Wars books, here's my personal recommendations. If you're looking at everything just face value, it's going to be very overwhelming. Thankfully, reading guides do exist for both Canon and Legends, and for that, I would definitely recommend the website and app Utini. They're a group of fans that love Star Wars books and comics and have reading guides on their website on where to start depending on where you want to begin. It's incredibly convenient, and the link to their website will be down in the description below. But even after that, if you're confused on where to start, I would just say, honestly, just pick a character that you know that you love or you're very interested in. If you're a fan of the prequel trilogy, I would say start with Light of the Jedi, Dooku Jedi Lost, Brotherhood, or Ahsoka. Honestly, any of those are really great reads. If you're a fan of the original trilogy, I would start with Catalyst, Lords of the Sith, Thrawn, or A New Dawn. And if you're a fan of the sequels, I would start with Shadow of the Sith, Resistance Reborn, Phasma, or even The Rise of Skywalker's novelization. And if you're a fan of the expanded universe, or Legends as it's called now, I would recommend starting with Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy, Shadows of the Empire, Dark Lord, or Kenobi. I know that when you look at all of the Star Wars books that have been published since the franchise's conception, it can be insanely overwhelming and confusing. But again, the best part about this and what makes these stories so accessible is that it's really up to where you want to start. If you're an audiobook person, I would say either use Spotify or Audible. Both have been very helpful to me. Again, I'm not sponsored by either of them, but they're just really great resources. But if you're more of a physical copy kind of person, you can get new copies of Canon and Legends books from online sellers or your local brick and mortar stores. That way you're also not breaking the bank to acquire the stories that you want to invest your time into. Overall, if you're a Star Wars fan and you've never sat down to read a Star Wars book or comic, I highly recommend doing so. It's absolutely worth your time. No matter the era, no matter the character, there is absolutely a story for you. Even if you've kind of soured on things a little bit and you're not a fan of the current canon, I'd still recommend checking out some of those canon books because you might end up surprised. But regardless of where you choose to start, the important thing is that you chose to start. You've taken your first steps into a larger world. Thank you so much for watching. May the Force be with you. And until next time, billions must read.